Good evening. Hello, all you wonderful people. It is 8:30 on Wednesday evening. You're with Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher, and I am coming to you live. Hopefully that's working now. I'm still working out all these technical glitches. So yes, you're with Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher. I'm coming to you live for the spirituality show with the spiritual events directory. So for those of you that are tuned in the last couple of weeks, you'll know who I am. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, let me introduce myself. I'm Belinda Hayes. I live in Brisbane in Australia. I'm a spiritual teacher, and I am on here every single Wednesday evening from 8:30 for 1 hour to talk to you about energy, about crystals, about healing, and my absolute passion about the science and the explanation of all those things. So I can't wait to bring tonight's chat to you and to connect with all you wonderful people again. I can see Kitty's coming on from Washington State, and Patricia. Got a hello there from Thelma, a huge hello, and Marendi as well. So a few of you online already, which is absolutely amazing. I just want to say to you guys, I have had the absolute most wonderful time connecting with all of you over the last couple of weeks. So I know we've got some first timers on here today, but since doing these lives, I have been contacted, I've been PM'd, I have had beautiful connections made and chats happen in the week in between, and that's what it's all about. To me, there is nothing more sacred and special than connecting with another human being, or just connecting in general. It doesn't even have to be human, let's face it. Animals, nature, the earth, it's all amazing. So a huge thank you to all of those that have reached out to me and shared your gratitude to me, because I certainly share it straight back to you. So we had the beautiful Shelley, and I'm hoping that she will be on here at some stage if she's not already. I can see you all popping on live. So hello there to Michelle and Sandra, Serena. I can see Jared's on as well. A huge hello. Magdalena. We've got a whole bunch of you. So and Shani's on as well. So I'm very excited for tonight. If you remember, the wonderful Shelley last week, excuse me, I'll try and get my words out, asked me a question about intuition, and in particular, how do you know what your Clair is, or what your dominant Clair, or what are some exercises and activities you can do to one, identify it, and also strengthen it, or to try and develop that particular intuitive ability that you might have. So that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. So if that sounds good to you guys, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you're on. I can see everyone saying hello to me, but I'd love to just kind of start off by asking you guys, how are you? Let me know. How's your week been? What's been happening? Pop some comments down. I'm seeing them all come up. Trust me, they just flick up onto the screen and I can see everything going on, which is really lovely. And don't forget, if you've got any questions at all during this live, just pop them in those comments, because they do come up and I can get back to them. If you see my eyes keep going down this way, it's because I have my computers also set up beside this. I've got double technology in case we lose one. And it means that I can go back through and scroll through the messages rather than kind of doing this on my phone and blocking that camera. Wonder what on earth I'm doing. So yeah, I want to get straight into it, because there's so much information to share with you guys today, and in particular about intuition and about the Clairs and what your dominant is. In fact, I've been a busy little gal, and in the last week since we caught up, I have in fact put together a special kind of, for want of a better term, a quiz. It's a set of questions that you can go ahead and answer, and it's going to tell you what your dominant Clair is, just based on your responses to those. So as I'm talking about those, I'm grabbing the link for you now that I've created, and I'm going to pop that up in the comments for you so that you can actually see, or you can download that, you can have a look at it, and you can see what it is that you might be, either now as you're doing the live. If you've got a printer, you can print that out, you can check it out, or it's something that you might be able to do tomorrow or at a later time for some more information anyway. So what I really wanted to talk to you about and get into there, and a huge hello to Robin. I can see she's just popped in. We've got a few newbies today, which is so exciting. Absolutely exciting. Like I said, love connecting, guys. So I want to get straight into it, talking about the Clairs. So believe it or not, there are in fact actually 8 Clairs, but we usually focus on 4 of those in particular because the other 4 can kind of fall into a category of one of the others. And I'll take you through what those main 4 ones are for you anyway. So the number one that we are most probably all familiar with is clairvoyance. Now, when we say the Clairs, if you're not familiar with what that is, Clair just means all, okay? When you translate that, okay, so it means all. So, for example, clairvoyance means all seeing, okay? And so when somebody is clairvoyant or has an intuitive ability of clairvoyance, then they have this kind of ability of all seeing. Now, what that means is, they're not necessarily somebody who's completely prophetic, but a lot of times clairvoyant people are. You find clairvoyance in a lot of your psychics or a lot of especially your mediums. They tend to see through visuals. But when we know, or how we identify if we are clairvoyant, is exactly that. It's all about visualization. Clairvoyance is kind of those people that they're drawn to what they can see. Okay, so think about things, if you're booking a holiday or you're thinking about booking a holiday, and when you think about that holiday, you're interested and you're excited and you're looking forward to all the things you're going to see, such as the architecture that might be there, the scenery that might be around, then these are signs that in actual fact you are quite clairvoyant. You are very much drawn to your visuals. So you can have, these people love colour. They're often very creative as well. They see the bigger picture of things. It's all about that seeing. They're the ones that are going to get into things like your scrapbooking, your arts, your painting. They're going to have these amazing homes full of colour. They're quite organised people as well because clutter kind of confuses them too much, the visual stimulus of clutter. So if you are sitting here, if you're sitting here now, sorry if that just paused on you. Oh, nearly knocked you off my bench there. If you're sitting there listening to this and you can relate to what I'm saying, then you may very well be clairvoyant. Okay, so these type of people enjoy the cinematography of a movie, for example. They're all about the scenery and the characters and what they're wearing and what they look like. They make really good CEOs. They do have that bigger picture overview of things. So I can see people are putting up comments there saying, oh my God, tagging somebody, this is you. So that's clairvoyance, and we'll talk a bit more about that. The next one that often comes up for a lot of people is also what I am, and that is clairsentient. So a lot of your healers are going to fall into this space of being clairsentient. So clairsentience is actually the ability to feel. So it's an all feeling. Okay, so what this means, and there's another, like I said, there's actually 8 kind of clairs, but we talk about the main 4. So something like clair empathetic, if you've ever heard that, or a clair empath, they would fall into this as well, into clairsentience. And so what a clairsentient is they are all about the feel. So if you are ever talking to somebody, or if you even lead your conversations with, I feel, oh, I really feel like that could be, or I was feeling into this the other day, or you often can pick up clairsentient people because they do lead with their feelings. What's more prevalent with clairsentience, however, is not only do they lead with their own feelings, but they can often pick up other people's feelings as well. So this is why your empaths, your clair empaths will fall into this category. The difference with an empath and somebody who is clairsentient specifically is an empath is able to pick up and feel other people's emotions, whereas a clairsentient can actually physically feel energy of somebody else. So for example, as a healer, a Reiki healer and crystal healer, when I have a client laying on the table and I am standing, even if I'm just sitting in the same room as them and I have their permission to tune into their energy, etc., I will start to feel what's going on in their body. If they have a bung knee because they busted it, on a fall off a bike or something, I'm going to start feeling that pain in my right knee. A lot of these you know, it may be emotional pain, and I'll start to get an actual ache in my heart. So it's not just the emotion necessarily like an empath, but also going deep into the feeling. So that's clairsentient. There are many, many clairsentients and clairempathetics out there as well. Kitty's putting up saying she is so clairsentient or an empathetic. She gets choked up a lot. And for those Claire people that are possibly thinking, yeah, I can relate to this, then places like shopping centres, you probably hate them. The reason being there's just so much energy around. You know, you think about putting your hands onto a shopping trolley and the number of people that have popped the energy that's passed through that, and you're going to be picking up on all that. Children, you know, if you think about it, clairvoyance obviously is coming out of the third eye. You know, it's all this energy that's being projected out of the third eye, and we'll talk a little bit more about, you know, how we can intuitively tune into exercising our clairs. If that's the case, clairsentience and clairempathetics, they come out of what we call our solar plexus chakra. It's the gut feeling, okay? It's that middle of the stomach between your navel and your heart, that middle area there. And of course, kids, for example, I've said this before in previous lives, kids live out of their solar plexus. It's all about emotion. It's all about imagination and creativity. And so often with clairsentience, we get this gut feeling. Okay, it starts kind of in that gut space for us. And then it will move depending on where we identify that in our body. There is I was reading some information the other day from a lovely lady, and she refers to clairsentience as little Velcro strips. we tend to just pick up what's going on all around us. So that is one of the other most dominant clairsentience. Then we move on to one that we call clairaudience. Okay, so that's an all hearing. I'm just checking here that I'm not mentioning one of the other ones. I'll fall into that. Now, with clairaudience, this is the people pick up more about sound. Okay, for some people, this can be subtle things, but the way you identify if you're stronger Clair might be clairaudience is that you love sound. And what I mean by this is when you are by the ocean, for example, it's the sound of the waves crashing on the ocean. You can often be in a very, very busy place. And I often see this with people with clairaudience, like they can be sitting on a train, for example, where you've got all those noises and they can tune into one particular sound. All of a sudden they'll be like, oh my God, listen to that bird. And you'll be like, what bird? And they've picked up this bird chirping. Yeah, they're very attuned to sounds. These type of people usually hate high-pitched sounds, you know, squeaky hinges and door frames and things like that. Like that kind of sound really grates on them. But they are very much connected to things like soundtracks of the movies, songs. When that song comes on the radio for them, they can hear the song, they can hear what's coming next. It's the music that they really connect into. My ex-partner was certainly one of these. He loves dance music, electronic dance music, and I can't stand the stuff. It's too boom, boom, boom. But for him, it was just all about that note, that sound, that music. He was really tuned into that. And people that have highly tuned in clairaudience signals or clairaudience abilities, then they will start to not only hear these sounds, but also start hearing that voice inside their head. Now, I'm not talking about their voice, okay? We all know our own voice. We all know that one that's inside our head. I'm talking about that other one, that intuitive voice. And you'll know the difference when you hear it. Now, I've heard many, many stories of people kind of saying, you know, God, I've been walking along the road and then I've heard my name called and I've turned around to see what it is. There's no one there, but all of a sudden like a car's shot in front of them or something's happened, and it's the voice, them turning and stopping, that has kind of helped them and saved them in that moment. So all those kind of things that occur are clairaudience. And I can see that one of you have just popped up here saying, Merendi saying, oh, that's got to be her son. He hates those loud, sharp, piercing sounds. And Amanda saying she even thinks in song. And this is quite often what happens if you've ever seen a medium work live on stage, you know, doing a platform show. They have their clairvoyance where they can bring and see, you know, spirit from the other side. they'll have their clairsentient when they can feel and pick up a whole lot of things that have, you know, maybe like how they passed over. And another thing is they'll talk to them and they'll hear them talking to them, and of course that's clairaudience. So a lot of your mediums, for example, have actually worked with their intuitive gifts until they have actually been able to develop all of the clairs together to allow them to actually access intuition across many ways. We all have the ability to do that. Every single one of us has the ability to do that. However, for all of us, there will usually be one clair that is more dominant. So if you're just tuning in now and you scroll back up through the comments a bit, you'll see a link that I've posted up there. I've put a little quiz together that you can click on and download and print off and go through and answer those questions, and then it will identify for you which one is your most dominant clair and give you some information about them as well. Okay. So last but certainly not least that I wanted to talk about, and I might just on a side note mention, you know, we had clair empathy coming into clair sentience. There are two others like clair augustine, which actually means clear tasting. So this may be that you pick up a taste in your mouth, and there's also clair salience, which is clear smelling. Now I tend to put these all through with clair audience, okay, because they're all connected in through this same place here. All right. But these are where, like, I was speaking to a lovely friend of mine who is a medium and, a psychic. And when he, no, I was right the first time, he's a medium. And when he picked up somebody who had passed over, he said, oh my God, can you taste, like, I'm just getting bacon and eggs, you know, and he could taste the bacon and eggs. Or if you've ever been sitting on your lounge and all of a sudden you get that smell of cigarette smoke that's so strong, it smells like somebody's lit up a cigarette beside you. That can then be your clairalience, alience, or your clear smelling coming through. But we do kind of lump those other two into clairaudience or clair augustine, so that you can, you know, usually if you've got that ability, you'll pick up a lot of those others. I find the smell tends to be one that a lot of people can relate to. You'll be like, oh my God, I smell that all the time, that smell of lavender, and it reminds me of my auntie, or, oh yes, I smelt that and it reminds me of my grandfather, you know, and that can often be a way that spirit can come through to us, or our intuition can trigger something for us. That olfactory sensor and receptors that we have, moving back into the science base, is one of the strongest memory inducing receptors that we have. And last but not least, one of the fourth main clair that a lot of people are is claircognience. Okay, now claircognience is an all-knowing. So these people are pretty amazing. These are kind of the people that know something before it's happened. They think about somebody, and then that next thing the phone rings and it's them ringing, okay, on the phone. This has happened to all of us at some point. But if you believe, or your strongest clair is claircognience, then usually you're kind of one of these people who can walk into a room and you just feel like you've got to get out of there. Something's not right. This can be a gut feeling as well, not to be mistaken with clairsentience. But with cognizance, it comes more from the heart space. Okay, so they kind of you get this feeling here in your heart. So it's much more of a response that's heart driven. And when you tune into your heart, you can feel something, or you just know something about what's going on, or about a person who walks up to you. You know, it's kind of like, these type of people are the people that give you advice. You might be talking to them and they give you this advice, and they give you the most spot on accurate advice, and you kind of go, how do you know that about me? And quite often these people, it's almost like they're channeling information. It's just coming through them, which is exactly what's happening. The intuition is just working through their heart space and channeling that information through. And in doing so, they're just giving the most solid sound advice as a result of it, because they already know what it is you need to hear. So that's what we call claircognizance. Okay, excuse my pronunciation of that. A lot of people will have two clairs that often, one's more dominant always, or most usually, but we'll often have two that are playing side by side, you know. For me, it's clairsentience and then claircognizance. I have this kind of, I can feel what's going on, and then I just know. So often I can kind of feel like something's going on, like let's say it's emotional. I'll pick up that emotional feeling, and then I'll just know what's causing it. And so that's how my two Clairs beautifully work together. So I can see Katie's on there saying, I have all of the Clairs, but the claircognizant is the strongest for her. So, and that's often what happens. So if you get a chance to, and one of the ways that you can identify this, and these are some of the questions that I've done in this little quiz for you, if you're not sure, then is to think of things like I mentioned earlier about, when you're going on vacation, for example, what is it that you're most drawn to? Are you most drawn to what it is you're going to see? And that's a good sign that you're likely more clairvoyant. Is it the architecture? Is it the scenery? Is it the sights that you want to go and see? Is it more about what you're going to feel? If you're thinking of booking somewhere like Koh Samui in Thailand, is it about feeling the sun on my shoulders and I'm going to feel so relaxed and I want to go somewhere that I feel this? Then of course that's more of your clairsentience. Then we have, or maybe it's about what you're going to hear. Are you booking a vacation because it's a music, there's some kind of music festival happening, or you want to be near where you can hear the sound of the waves or something like that falling? Or is it actually about different languages? You want to go somewhere that you can hear different phonetical sounds. So therefore you're going to go somewhere like Japan, for example. Those is going to bring up clairaudience. And then of course you've got, maybe you are more interested in learning about the area. What is the what's the culture, what's the history, what's the parts about knowing about the area for your vacation? Then of course we can come back to claircognizance. So you can see even the way you go about your daily routine, if you've never stopped to think about it before, what are the things you lead with? What are the things when you are asked a question, for example? Do you respond with I see, I think, I feel, I know? What are the words that come out your mouth when you are starting to have a discussion with people? If I was to come up to you and start talking about, I was not thinking politics, but maybe start talking something like climate change. If I mention those words to you and I was to have a conversation with you and say, tell me about climate change in your opinion, or tell me about what you, even I got to say what you feel about it because they're my leading words. And if you respond with, I really feel that, or from my opinion is, or I can see that, those kind of key phrases, the see, the feel, the think, the know, are going to already identify what is stronger for you in terms of your clairs. When you can identify what your strongest clair is, then you can work on strengthening it. You can work on tuning into it, or you might already know you've got that strong clair and you want to work on the others. In which case, I want to come back to where they're all directed from. So before I do, I can see Amanda's asked a question. Can we be all of these at the same strength? And I ask because I feel like these all apply to me. These used to be just about daily. I used to use all these daily. What is that called? The great question, Amanda, and the answer to that is absolutely 100% yes, you can be all of those. And people that are strongly connected to their intuition, those that have the ability to tune into all of the senses and use them all, have very heightened intuition. Okay, I mentioned earlier, you see these with psychic mediums. They have to raise their energy to a very high vibration to connect with the spiritual realm and to bring passed over loved ones through. And when they do, they use all of them at the max level they can, or that they're trained to, or that they have worked towards. They will use, what are they hearing? What is that passed over loved one saying? What are they seeing? They're getting visual stimuli. What are they smelling? What are they tasting? What are they feeling? What do they know? They're all being used in that space. Now, don't get me wrong. We all have the ability to do this. Every single one of us have the ability to do this. Okay. Every single psychic medium I know, and certainly within the space that I am within, I meet a lot of them. They have all spent years and years and years developing their intuition. They do spiritual development circles and they do exercises and they find ways. There's never a day they are not building that part of themselves. It's like anything, the brain itself is a mental muscle, and we say use it or lose it. One of the things they say for things like dementia is crosswords, use the brain. The intuition is just as needed. And I've got somebody has asked, how can we improve our potential? And I'll come back to that in a second, because what I wanted to actually talk, and you know that I'm all about the science. I'm very, very passionate about the science and the how-to behind what we are doing. Okay, and so I wanted to talk to you about things like what you've probably heard of, the pineal gland, for example. Now, we call this area of our brain, our body here, or this energy point of our body, the third eye. One of the reasons we call it the third eye, and certainly the way it got its nickname, for want of a better term, is because of the pineal gland. Okay, that pineal gland actually has, and science has discovered in studying this, just like our eye, if anybody knows how we actually see out of our eyes, the image that actually hits our retina and hits our eye is seen upside down. It's actually sent through and flipped. Okay, so we actually see the world technically upside down, which is pretty exciting. But then we have these things in the back of our eye called rods and cones. Okay, and they actually they process the color, and they turn the image back up right side for us, and they process everything that we see within that peripheral distance as well. You know, they're processing and they're scanning, they're flipping it around, and that's how we're seeing it, rods and cones. Well, our pineal gland actually has rods and cones within it, which means it is an eye, hence why it's called our third eye. Okay, it has the ability to take stimuli just like our eye does and interpret it in many, many different ways. Now, it doesn't do it where it does it through color or necessarily, but it does it through visualization. It does it through feeling. It does it through sound. These are our clairs, okay? The other thing that's fascinating, on a complete side note with the pineal gland, is that there's crystals inside it. Another reason I absolutely adore crystals. And when they get pressurized, so when our pineal gland is used and it actually starts, it starts to pressurize and push together like this. And what it does is it puts pressure on those crystals in our pineal gland. They start to vibrate, okay, and they create piezoelectricity. And the piezoelectricity is an energy wave that is then sent through our brain, because we also have crystals inside our brain, believe it or not. And those messages are received by the transmitters in our brain. Okay, so if you think about it, we are actually using a part of our body, the pineal gland, that is using rods and cones like a third eye to interpret stimuli. It is getting pressurized, an electrical impulse is sent out, an energy, frequency, and wave that we are then again further interpreting in our body. We do that in these ways we are talking about called clairs. Okay, that's the kind of easy, quick science behind intuition, for want of a better term, in our bodies. Okay, and so what that means is that when people often say to me, how do I know if it's my imagination or if it's my intuition? Okay, this is a great question. And the easiest way to answer that is, does it come really quickly and out of the blue? Like, are you thinking about something else and then all of a sudden you get this fleeting thought over the back of your head, you know, into your mind? Okay, it came from nowhere. Absolutely no idea where it came from. That's probably intuition. Okay, it's this real fleeting thought. The problem is we have so many thoughts every second, we often don't necessarily grab or focus on that one that's come through as intuition for us. So we need to use our dominant Clair to know when that intuition is coming through strongest for us, or use that strongest Clair to actually interpret when that intuition is sent to us. Now, in the spiritual industry, we talk about meditation. We don't say this to be a broken record, okay? You will not hear a spiritual soul alive who doesn't say meditate, 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 meditate. There is a reason for that, okay? And I talked about it a lot in my first live. Please go back and have a listen to that one if you haven't already. But, you know, when we enter into a place of stillness and we shut our brain up, if we can just close down our thoughts where they don't have to go into flight or flight reflex, where they're not keeping it, you know, our brain doesn't need to scan and find out what's keeping us safe. When we can actually close that down, then we can allow our third eye and our intuition to start sending us everything it needs, okay? And we'll start to pick up a whole heap of what is being sent to us through our most dominant intuitions. Okay. So, for example, when a lot of people will say, and I get this a lot, I can't meditate because I can't visualize. Can't visualize anything. I find it really difficult. In actual fact, it frustrates me. I sit there and I'm staring at the black behind my eye, and and what I say then is, don't focus on trying to visualize something. Work out what your dominant Clair is and spend your time meditating, focusing on that. If you're claircognizance, if that's what you have identified, then while you're meditating, take your awareness to your heart space. Okay, so this is about how can I focus my or build or increase our potential, I think was the question specifically asked. Let's take claircognizance, okay, that all-knowing. If you identify that, yes, I am this, then I want you, when you're meditating, to take your complete awareness to your heart space, your heart chakra, the center of your chest, center of your being. It's a beautiful place to be in. For those of you that aren't able to maybe take your awareness to a particular place in your body, then just take the tips of your fingers, 1 or 2, whatever it might be, and just touch that place. What happens is when we touch something, our awareness immediately goes to that place we're touching, especially if we're touching ourselves. We can feel it. Okay, so let's use one of our 5 senses, touch in particular. Hold your fingers on your heart space and then bring your full awareness to the tips of your fingers, into that center there, and just hold and focus on that. Okay, what I do, if you want to work through claircognizance in particular, bring your awareness into your heart space, and then bring somebody to mind. Pick a person. Okay, pick a person you know well to start with, or if you find, because you know them too well, pick a stranger and just sit in that space, feeling into your heart, holding that person in your mind. See what comes to mind for you. Okay, maybe it's not a person that you want to hold to mind. Maybe it's a moment or a time or a space. All right, so you might be holding the intention of just tomorrow, and then you see what comes up for you about tomorrow. Look, it may be nothing at first. All right, the more we use and activate our pineal gland, the stronger and stronger it gets. Now, I must also mention, when I'm talking about the pineal gland, there are so many things that we do in this day and age that destroy, or otherwise science calls it calcifies, our pineal gland. Okay, just like you can get calcification in your bones, your teeth, all sorts of places, the pineal gland can calcify as well. Okay, so for example, eating too much red meat. I'm not saying to become a vegan or a vegetarian, but just being aware that eating too much red meat can calcify it. Eating processed and high sugar and fatty foods, which is, let's face it, a significant portion of our diet. All right, in this day and age anyway, that can calcify our pineal gland. Another thing that really, really calcifies our pineal gland, and no doubt I'll cop some grief for even saying this though, is fluoride. Okay, and the scary thing is the government's well aware of the effects of fluoride. Fluoride was first used in water back in the prisoner of war camps during the times of the Nazis. Okay, and they added it to the water of the prisoner of war camps to, for want of a better term, zombify the prisoners, to keep them compliant. All right, and so when they identified that this occurred, that this was actually a way to, I don't want to use the word control, but I'm going to, because I've already said it, control the people. Okay, it became quite common and a bit of a norm through a lot of the governments. Now, there's one country in the world that has never put fluoride in their water, and certainly since 1990 have done everything they can to filter it out of their water, and that's Russia. All right, I always say don't be scared of North Korea, be scared of Russia. And they, I remember as a child, I live in the Redlands in Brisbane, and I remember as a child, we never had fluoride in our water. Our water used to come under the sand dunes of Stradbroke Island. It was the freshest, cleanest water. It was amazing. The taste, it was incredible. It was filtered through natural sand. And but my parents every morning used to give me a tiny little pink tablet, because the dentist used to give it to them. In actual fact, our local council used to hand them out at rates time to everybody to take, and they were fluoride tablets. And now, years on, fluoride has now been added to the water because we've now connected through to the Leslie Harrison Dam, and we now get our water source from there all these years on. So one of the things I don't do, for example, is I don't drink town water. Now, I don't buy bottled water. I have a rainwater tank, and that's all I drink. If you can get to a point of using some sort of filtered water, then you can start to get rid of the fluoride that you are consuming. It does calcify your pineal gland. It makes intuition a lot harder. The very first thing you need to do is try and decalcify your pineal gland for the years that you may not have even been aware that you were calcifying it. Okay, but the more use of it, the more we can help decalcify it, because we're going to keep pressurizing those crystals and getting the calcium and whatnot off those crystals. Okay, so obviously meditate is going to actually assist to that as well. I can see Loz is saying, well, on the bright side, I have tank water. Yes, absolutely. There's a bright side to everything. Find that silver lining. So anyway, I was on a complete side note with that, but that just explains, scientifically what's going on with your head, how you can help. There are some amazing meditations out there. If any of you have follow or you're into looking up for any, there are some meditations done on the pineal gland, ones that are specifically for the pineal gland. For those of you that are clairaudient and love your sounds, you can actually find binaural beats or frequencies that are played that actually work on the frequency of the pineal gland, helping to decalcify that as well. So whatever might work for you. And then Shani's talking about shungite. Thank you, Shani. I'm glad you brought that up, because I did think about that a moment ago and then it left my mind. There is one crystal, that will actually filter fluoride out of the water, and that is shungite. Shungite, shungite. Okay, and you can place shungite. I know with those water filters, there are some amazing ones that do it now, but most of the kind of counter water filters will put charcoal or some kind of activating agent or like charcoal in the water to filter. That will filter most of the bacteria, the chemicals, etc., but it won't filter the fluoride. Okay, the fluoride, though, will be filtered if you wanted to add shungite in there as well. So if you haven't got any, you can grab some. It's not the cheapest of crystals. I mean, it probably, it feels a bit like, it's quite light, a bit like charcoal or a bit like a lava bead. But I think it wholesales at about $330 a kilo. So you can imagine retail would be a lot more than that. But you don't need much, about 300 grams of it. And be mindful, there's silver shungite and there's black shungite. Silver's the better, but you can use black if you've got nothing else. But if you can get hold of it, silver shungite is brilliant. And I did mention Russia. They've been putting shungite in their town water since 1990. So that's 30 years now. They have been filtering fluoride out of their town water. So I just wish, Australia just seems to take so long to cotton on to anything and to catch up. So until it does, and certainly until our governments do, fluoride alone, if you've ever read the chemical warning label for fluoride, it says not to be ingested. The tiniest ingestion and you're meant to induce vomiting and call, for help. So it's actually one of the main active ingredients in some of your your drugs for mental disorders, for example, schizophrenia and that kind of thing. It's one of the main ingredients in that too, because it helps level and control, emotions, the mind, all sorts of things. It actually will help cancel your intuition, essentially. So let's start. If there's nothing else you take away from this live, let's start by trying to reduce the amount of fluoride intake we have. I use a fluoride-free toothpaste, for example. I don't ingest it at all anymore, but it's all going to assist you to strengthening those clairs. So we talked about claircognizance, coming back to the heart space, bringing a person to mind or a moment such as tomorrow, and seeing what awareness will come up for you when you're sitting in a state of meditation, because your pineal gland is actually it's pressurizing and it's interpreting those messages. For some of us, it might take some time to get those interpretations and understand what they mean. A good example of that is clairvoyance, okay? For example, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a medium, and we were talking about interpreting what we see, because it's one of the hardest parts and one of the hardest things, right? So what I mean by that is often you might be shown something and you have absolutely no idea what it means. Or you will go into a thing of what we call cognitive overlay, which is where your brain starts to interpret it. Now, not your intuition, but your brain. And what I mean by this is, let's say that you are shown in your mind's eye, okay, your third eye through your pineal gland, as part of your clairvoyance, you are shown a yellow rose. Now, what that yellow rose may mean to you versus me are two very different things. So what often happens is we then go into a bit of overlay. For example, I know the meaning of different colored flowers. So if I was shown a yellow rose to me is the symbol of friendship, okay, because that's what the yellow rose symbolizes. So whereas somebody else, the yellow rose may symbolize something completely different. So what often happens, especially if we are dealing with the spirit world or our intuition in general, it's going to use our frame of reference of what we know. All right. So it's very hard when you're trying to share a message with somebody, if that's what you're trying to work towards, okay, that you use your frame of reference to interpret it. Because if I use the particular yellow rose example because this is the one I was discussing with my friend who is a psychic medium, and she said, I said, a yellow rose. I said, that's a symbol of friendship. And she said, for you, yes. She said, but I was shown it. And when I was growing up, my grandmother used to grow yellow roses all the way down her front path. And whenever I see a yellow rose, I think of my grandmother. So spirit uses her clairvoyance to, when there is a grandmother or a grandmotherly figure, somebody of that stature who's passed over, and they're coming through with a message, they'll show her a yellow rose to confirm that it's a grandmother. All right. But if they showed me that yellow rose, that wouldn't mean that to me. So your intuition is based also around your frame of reference, and that's important to remember as well. So when you are trying to interpret, just be mindful, if you're talking to somebody else about it, they're going to put their interpretation on it. Okay, but it's your frame of reference and your interpretation. So when you're working with clairvoyance, if you're one of these people that are all about visual images, you see the bigger picture, everything's about scenery and imagery for you, cinematography and scenery, all those things we talked about. Even if you're listening to music, for example, you almost visualize the band playing the music or visualize this singer standing there singing it. Then when you are doing activities to strengthen that clair, then you need to be bringing your awareness here to your third eye, okay? When I do work on clairvoyancy, then I almost visualize, and the best way I can describe this to you is that I visualize that I'm inside my mind, I'm in my pineal gland, in my third eye, looking out. So I'm not looking through my eyes, okay, I'm looking through my mind. And then I am actually waiting to see what it is that I see. So one of the ways I'll often do this is I'll try and visualize through a wall. For example, what can I see in the other room? Sometimes I'll even do little activities like where I'll get my kids to hide something, underneath a towel, for example, and then I will try and visualize and see what that is. A really good way of doing this is things like a deck of cards, where you just start by visualizing, do I see red or black? All right, then you can turn it over. And then if you wanted to go a bit further, you could go, do I see club, spade, heart, or diamond? And then even further, do I see, the number? So you can actually really build and keep continuing to build your intuition around your clairvoyance with little activities for yourself that way. With clairaudience, okay, this place here, it's not necessarily related so much to a chakra. I just want to say a huge hello there to Namrata. She's saying it's the first time she's tuned in. She's enjoying herself, so welcome. Thank you very much for tuning in. So with clairaudience, the place that you want to bring your awareness to with this, if you actually take your middle finger and place it on your temple, I'll try and do this into the camera, and place your thumb, on the top of your ear canal there, it's that halfway point. Okay, it's kind of this spot here, not quite your temple, not quite your ear, this space here. Okay, who here gets headaches in that place? Who here, even touching it now, finds it a little bit sore and sensitive to touch? This spot here, okay? This is the place you want to bring your awareness to for clairaudience and listen. One of the best ways to do this, okay, is to go and sit somewhere quite noisy and then focus on one sound at a time. Hold your hand here and just focus. I want you to tune into just the bird making a sound. I want you to tune into just what the footsteps sound like walking on the gravel as they come past you. Tune into the sound of the wind, just one noise at a time, so that you can start identifying shifts and changes in noise, okay? And then when you can do that and you can really bring your awareness to it, start listening to when it's yourself talking to yourself. We all know what our own internal voice sounds like. We talk to ourselves a million times a day, right? Versus when it may be your intuition or possibly even spirit talking to you. You can, a lot of, I don't know if many of you follow Peter Williams, but I've watched, you know, he's a lovely friend of mine. And so I was watching a live of his not that long ago when he was talking about how his clairaudience, because his is very strong. And he said he used to hear it inside his head. And then one day he was talking to spirit and he said to spirit, I find it so difficult to ascertain what's my voice and what's your voice. When you talk to me, can you just talk to me outside of my head? Okay, and he started hearing them as if they were here standing beside him at that request. Remember, power of intention, power of positive thought. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and check out my second live. I go into great detail about that. And so now he knows definitely when it is spirit talking to him, because they'll come from outside his head, if that makes any sense. So you can just work on those activities to continually strengthen that for you. And then last but not least, of course, we have the clairsentience. Now, this is the one that I find a lot of people are, and children especially. We're finding more and more people as they become awakened are tuning in, and their clair that is becoming very strengthened is their clairsentience, their clair empathetic abilities. Okay. With this one, this comes out of the solar plexus between your navel and the center of your chest, that area right there in the kind of the middle of your tummy, the top of your tummy. And one of the ways you can really tune into this, if you have somebody you want to work with for this intuitive ability, is you can hold somebody's hand, okay, and see if you can tune in and feel what they're feeling. That can be an exercise that you can do with somebody. Be aware of that one, though, that they are being very honest with you as to what's going on, because some of you may pick up a level or a depth. So it's better off working with somebody, even though you may know them very well, may try and tune in and just see what you feel in your body. The best way I can actually say with clairsentience, the way I can identify it, because it took me so long to realize this, and one of the biggest things I find with clairsentience is they will often feel into something, okay, and they have this bit of a dilemma that occurs. They have this constant conflict going, is it mine? Is it yours? Did I create it? How can I fix it? That's probably the biggest one. This is why Clair empathetic falls into this. How can I fix it? It's somebody else's pain and somebody else's hurt, and we always try to fix it. Okay, clairsentience struggle. Really, I find they really struggle with, it takes them a long time to really embrace their particular clair, because sometimes it's not a comfortable clair. It can be quite an uncomfortable one. I know one of you mentioned earlier that you often feel your children's emotional pain. And, you know, I find parents they're born with an empathetic ability to attach to our children, but it's more than that. You know, a lot of school teachers, I hear this a lot from school teachers, they get to know their children so well that they tune into them and they can feel everything those kids are feeling. Imagine having 30 little ones' emotions and pains that you are struggling and connecting to all the time. I think that would be quite difficult. Clairsentience also comes with a need to kind of protect your energy. Okay, I loved that concept of what I read about somebody explaining it like being a little Velcro strip. So there's times sometimes where you just have to put that Velcro away. Okay, you can't always be connecting in and tuning into everybody's energy. It's exhausting, and I don't mean it will drain you. I just mean you'll be constantly in conflict internally with what it is that you are thinking or feeling. I remember before I became a healer, one of the things that was happening really strongly with me is I would kind of be perfectly fit and healthy. I'd be walking along, I'd be chatting to somebody, and then my hip would start hurting, or my lower back would just really start hurting, or I'd get this pain in my shoulder. I mean, to the point that I'd be sitting there talking to them, massaging my shoulder, And they'd say, oh, is your shoulder sore too? Yeah, I had a fall off a horse the other day and my shoulder's still quite bunged. You know, and it took me ages to realize when these sudden pains were coming into my body when I was perfectly fine, they weren't mine. And then it took me just as long to realize that I could say to the universe, thank you, I identify that, but now I release it and I let it go. And the minute I would do that, the pain would immediately leave. Okay, so if you are somebody who's working, who's working on that intuitive ability, be aware that you need to set very clear boundaries around it. This goes for any intuition. As a matter of fact, any of your clairs, you need to set boundaries around it. Number one, from an ethical point of view, I never, ever tune into somebody's energy without their direct permission to do so and consent. Okay. There's a bit of a grey area when it comes to children because you can actually get the guardian's consent in that regard. But I would never ever, I often have people say to me when they learn who I am or what I do, they say, oh, what do you pick up about me? And I'll say, I don't pick up anything about you without your express permission to do so. And they go, oh, I'll give you permission now. And I turn around and go, well, let's chat later. I won't kind of do it because there has to be some clear boundaries around that. Because if I allowed it just to turn on at any given moment, it can sometimes overwhelm me, especially if you think about, and I did an amazing blog about this last year when I headed over to Japan, sitting in an airport, for example. If you've ever sat in an airport and just sat back, gone really still, opened up your intuition, it can be incredibly overwhelming. There are so many noises. There is so much emotion running through that place. And it's not just negative emotion. It's not just sad emotion. It's very positive emotion as well. It's people reconnecting. There's this excitement coming from people who have never been on a plane before. There's anxiety for those that hate to fly. There's sadness of people leaving. There's, happiness and joy at people coming. I mean, the emotions in an airport are enough sometimes to cripple me. And for years and years and years, I had a phobia of flying. Now, it wasn't actually that I was afraid of the plane. I realized I got so anxious flying because of how I felt. And it was because I was clairsentient. I was actually picking up every other person on the plane, their physical ailments, their emotional ailments, their spiritual ailments, you name it. I was picking it all up. And it took me a long time to realize, and now I can kind of just turn all that off, put my boundaries in place, and I can actually go on a flight now without getting that inducing, sometimes anxiety inducing, almost panic attacks. Some days I had to be the woman who got on at 8 o'clock and started drinking because I needed to just wipe myself out. Other days it was tablets that I took, until I realized exactly what was going on. Hospitals can be another extremely exhausting place. So if you're trying to do these things, I wouldn't recommend you do them in places like that. Not until you really know, not until you really know what it is that you're picking up and how to let it go when you pick up that it's not yours. The other thing with clairsentience and clairempathetics is when we do pick up what's going on with somebody, that we don't take it on as something we need to fix. Okay, it is not our job to heal somebody else. A healer's job is simply to hold space to allow somebody else to heal themselves, allow that person to. Okay, there has to be a commitment from that person for healing to be undertaken in order for that healing to even occur in the first place. So it can be kind of one of the hardest. It can be one of the hardest clairs. Now, I don't say that simply because that's what I am. I say that just because of what I know and what I've observed, and certainly what I've learnt from others as well. But if you're wanting to build and to really focus on your clairsentience, then that's one of the ways you can do it. Work with somebody to pick up and using psychometry, almost hold on to an object of theirs or hold on to them and tune into that gut place, that that top of that stomach, and see what you do pick up. It'll come to you as a gut feeling first, and for others it might go straight to that part of the body that they may be feeling it, headaches or pains or backache. Nothing worse than when your kidneys start throbbing and you're like, oh God, what is that? And you're like, it's not even mine. I've just walked past that person back there and whoa, they are, they really, really need to drink more water, for example, and you can just feel that, let it go. Katie's asking, how do I turn it off? It comes a bit like learning how to access your clairs. It also comes with practice, okay, and with doing it. One of the ways I turned it off, though, and it was so simple, is I just simply asked. I said, thank you, I acknowledge that, because the universe is my intuition's trying to show me something. Okay, that's my intuitive ability. So it's showing me. I go, thank you, I acknowledge that. I note it. Now I let it go. Okay, and that was enough for me to actually let it go. Now I don't even kind of have to say that. I just go, thank you. Like I acknowledge it and release it. It's like with anything. It's like with any emotion or any healing. Acknowledge, release. Acknowledge, release. Don't hold it. Don't hold it. Okay, so practice doing that. If you pick something up that's not yours, even if you have to say it out loud, thank you very much, universe, I acknowledge that, I now release it. And then focus on releasing it. Focus on the pain leaving your knee or the lower back, or if it's emotional, focus on that moving and shifting for you, and just keep working on that. Like I said, some people their intuition will kick in the worst places, and you may actually have to leave or move away from that person or walk out of that room. I've seen this happen with couples. Like there's been a couple that's just had a big argument, or maybe they've even broken up in a room, and somebody who's very clairsentient will step into that room and they can feel the energy of the room and have no idea what's going on, but they're angry and sad all at once, and they'll often have to leave that room, and this is, I think, dogs are a prime example of clairsentient beings. They only have to walk up towards somebody and they know straight up if that person's solid or not. And if she's not, they will immediately react. They'll normally want to get out of there, or they'll want to kind of go that person. They use clairsentience and clairempathetic abilities, in their norm, not to mention their clairaudience is pretty amazing and strong as well. So I'm having a look at a few comments here because I've been chatting away. I'm conscious of the time. We've got like a few minutes left, and I wanted to get all of that information to you before the hour was up. So let me just check some of your comments. Christine saying, I love the science and how you make it sound so easy to understand. Thank you, Christine. I'm glad. I try. I'm glad you all love it. Loz is saying, sometimes at night I'll have my eyes shut, but it's as if I can see the room, but my eyes are shut. Is this similar? Loz, yes, this is clairvoyance. This is the visual stimuli of what's going on. There's two things that could be happening there. It could be your clairvoyance intuition kicking in. Secondly, it could be a form of astral travel where your soul is still actually seeing something. It's not quite connected, and people, this is another thing people try to do and learn how to do is astral travel. So what you need to do is bring your awareness to it, okay? Acknowledge it. Tell the universe, thank you, I see that, but not now. I let it go. Release it, okay? And get trained. Train yourself in how to turn your intuition on and off, okay, on demand. God, if you know any psychic mediums out there and they've got a live show coming up, if those that are still practicing the turning it off will say, God, Spirit have stepped in and they've been here for like 3 days. They're coming in the shower with me. I know Mitchell Coombs used to talk about things like that all the time, back in the day, John Edwards as well. And they have to get to a point where they go, no, you're too early. Come back in 3 days. And they kind of have to get into that ability to kind of switch and turn that off as well. So you can do that. You need to practice with that, but be very clear. It's all about intention, remember? Power of positive thought and intention, intention, intention. So I'm having another little bit of a scroll back. We were talking about Shungite. I thought somebody asked, here we go, premonition dreams. I experience a lot of premonition dreams, just wondering what would help in developing this in my waking life. This is from Magdalena. So premonition dreams are a form of, if you're visualizing what's happening, then it's a form of clairvoyance, but this is more claircognizance, okay? So this is coming into this heart space. So if you're wanting, with dreams in particular, and thank you so much for bringing this up, Magdalena, with dreams, if you are the type of person who knows you dream but you wake up and you cannot remember it, that's me, okay? I'm not a very visual person at all. It's all about feeling for me. So I'll often wake up, I know I've dreamt, but I can't remember what I've dreamt. However, I'm also the type of person who wakes up at 4 a.m. and needs to go to the loo. And when I'm walking to the loo at 4 a.m, I can remember everything. So what I started doing is keeping a diary beside my bed. Now, I'm a terrible writer because I don't wake up much. I love my sleep. But I'll kind of just jot down keywords or phrases that come from that dream in that journal, close it up and fall straight back asleep again. So keeping a dream journal can be a great way of actually processing what it is that you might be seeing. Secondly, it can actually help you tune into it more, because when you can get, one of the things we do, because we are such egotistical based beings, is when we get validation, and it builds our confidence. And when our confidence gets built, then of course we kick a notch up further into our intuitive ability as well. So the more you can validate what you are experiencing, the more confidence you'll build around it, and the more likely you will be to build that intuition around it as well. So if you're having premonition type dreams, Magdalena, or you're getting moments like that, jot it down, keep a journal, jot it down, and then when they happen, put a little tick and a date beside it and your feelings around it. And so you can go back and start saying, well, this is actually happening quite regularly and a lot more than I was giving it credit for. And you may start taking note a lot more of the things that your the universe, source, intuition, guides, spirits, whatever you want to call them, or collectively are sending you. Okay. I remember a girlfriend of mine when I was in year 7 was having this happen all the time. Everything she was dreaming was coming true within a week of it happening. And then she had this dream one night that I died in a car accident for not wearing my seatbelt. We were 12 years old at the time. And now I'm telling you, I never not wore my seatbelt again. You know, now I don't know. Was I going to? Who knows? She doesn't know. I don't know. You know, did I prevent it from happening? Maybe. You know, it's that whole, what comes first, chicken or the egg? You know, did I cause it or did you make it happen? You know, all those kind of questions. But what I would be doing is just getting that form of validation for yourself. So having a little look back up, it is 9:30, which means I've just hit my hour. So a huge thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in tonight. I truly appreciate and hold so much gratitude for connecting with you. I've popped up in the description of this live video all of the links of ways that you can connect with me. I have a personal Facebook group called Souls Collective, so please feel free. I share all sorts of awesome stuff in there, and it's a beautiful place that we can just be open and authentic and honest and ask questions. So you can jump in there and join. I've got Belinda Hayes, the Spiritual Teacher Facebook page that you can join, or you can even friend myself, being aware though that they do limit the number of friends you can have on Facebook, but send me one and hopefully I can add you on so that you can follow me personally. I've also, and I'm going to put it again at the end of this chat, but I've got that link up to that amazing quiz that you can complete tonight, tomorrow, whenever it works for you, to find out if you can identify what your dominant Clair is, if you're not 100% sure as well. So a reminder that I am based in Brisbane in Australia. I had somebody ask me earlier over in the Redlands, and I do have a speaker spot that I'm doing in Woolloongabba at the Rendezvous Tea Room in September. I'm going to be doing a 1.5 hour talk on crystals and how to use them for your everyday use. It's $15, so bugger all to come along if you want to check out the new venue by the beautiful Kate, and you can also hear me talk and meet me live in person. So if you wanted to come along to that, jump on my website belindahayes.com.au, and you can actually grab a ticket for that if you're Brisbane Vegas based. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next Wednesday, same bat channel, same bat time, 8:30 for an hour. If there's anything you'd love me specifically to talk about, or any questions you've got, pop them in this chat, because I do go back and look at them prior to organising the material for the next week, so I can see if there's anything there that I may have missed or that you guys are really keen to learn. So have a great night. Love you all. Thank you so much. Mwah. Blessings, and I'll chat in a week.